Shedeur Sanders isn't just under pressure, he's in the middle of what some are calling the most blatant case of internal sabotage the NFL has seen in years. One moment, the kid is dodging defenders and making smart throws against top-ranked defenses. The next, he's getting blindsided not by the opponent, but by his own team. A single frame from a recent game has sent shockwaves through the league. It shows a 300-pound offensive lineman just standing there, not in motion, not blocking. No urgency, just watching as Shedeur Sanders gets completely lit up in a 4th and 2 must-convert situation. And the internet is exploding with one question: was this deliberate? Because when you watch the tape, not just that play, but dozens of others from this season, a pattern starts to emerge. And it's ugly. It's not just poor protection. It's a systematic breakdown of support. From a bizarre training camp decision that sidelined Shedeur from real reps, to receivers disappearing in key matchups, to linemen who look more disinterested than injured. This goes beyond bad football. Fans are calling it out. Analysts are speaking up. And if the Browns don't get it together soon, they could ruin one of the league's most promising young quarterbacks before he ever gets a real chance. So what's really going on behind closed doors in Cleveland? And is Shedeur Sanders being set up to fail? Today, we're breaking it all down, from the play that went viral, to the hidden details in training camp, to the speculation about what's happening behind the scenes. And trust me, when you see everything laid out, you might just change your mind about what's happening in that locker room. The play everyone's talking about wasn't buried deep in the second quarter or lost in a forgettable moment. It was a make or break 4th down with everything on the line: momentum, the score, possibly the entire game. There were just a few yards to go. Everyone in the stadium, everyone watching from home, knew exactly what was at stake. This wasn't just a play, it was the play. And on this crucial snap, something happened that no one could explain at first. Not fans, not analysts, not even former players who saw it unfold live. As the ball was snapped and Shedeur Sanders dropped back to make a play, one man, Cam Robinson, a 300-pound offensive lineman, just stood there. Literally didn't move. No attempt to chip, to block, to slow down the rush. His legs barely twitched. His arms didn't extend. He wasn't caught off guard by a surprise blitz, and this wasn't a miscommunication or an exotic defensive package. This was a straight assignment, right in front of him, and he did less than nothing. The footage spread like wildfire. Frame by frame, clip after clip. On social media, fans were rewinding, zooming in, slowing it down. And in every replay, it became even more clear this wasn't an accident. This was effort-free football at a moment that demanded everything. Shedeur never even had a chance. The defensive lineman came through untouched and crushed him before he could set his feet. Drive over, energy gone, another possession wasted. Now, quarterbacks take hits all the time. They get blindsided, sacked, flushed out of the pocket. That's part of football. But this was different. This was a professional pass protector appearing to choose not to protect his quarterback. Not because he was injured, not because he was confused, but because, for reasons still unknown, he just didn't try. And that's where the outrage began, because people weren't just reacting to a blown play. They were reacting to something more disturbing, the implication that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a one-off mistake. Maybe it was part of something bigger, a pattern. A message being sent from inside the locker room dressed up as a missed block. What's even more revealing is what happened after the hit. Robinson wasn't frustrated. He didn't scream, didn't apologize, didn't even turn toward his fallen quarterback. He slowly jogged back to the huddle like nothing happened. That's not what a lineman does when his QB just got demolished because of something he failed to do. That's what someone does when they don't feel responsible, possibly because they knew what was supposed to happen all along. And this wasn't coming from an undrafted rookie or a player barely clinging to a roster spot. Cam Robinson is a veteran. He's played in big games. He knows exactly what a 4th down play requires. And yet somehow, in one of the biggest moments of the game, zero urgency, no accountability. As soon as that tape hit the internet, the takes started coming in fast. Former players said they'd never seen anything like it. Fans dug into past games and found similar lapses. No effort, no defense. It was like watching a man go through the motions on purpose. And once the footage started circulating, even analysts started connecting the dots. Because this play didn't pop out of nowhere. The same things had been happening in previous weeks: missed protection, missed pickups, free rushers coming unchecked through the middle. In isolation, it looks like bad football. Lined up in a row, it starts to look like something else. Some say it's lazy play. Others aren't convinced. Theories began pouring in. Is there beef in the locker room? Is there a veteran power struggle? Is Shedeur paying the price for being the face of the future when others on the team still think it belongs to someone else? And then there was a whisper, coming from analysts who have been covering the Browns for years, that this could be bigger than the players on the field. This could be cultural. Coaching. Rotting from the top down, because even if Robinson's play was unacceptable, where's the accountability? Where's the benching? The outrage from coaches? The post-game media pressure? There wasn't any. At least not in public. And that silence might be more damning than the play itself. When coaching staff ignore moments like this, when they let a lifeless snap slide, it tells other players they can do the same. It tells us, the viewers, that maybe the people in charge don't actually care what happens to their quarterback. Now, let's get one thing straight. Shedeur Sanders didn't play a perfect game. He made mistakes, missed opportunities. But that's part of being a young quarterback adjusting to the speed of the NFL. Errors are expected. What's not expected, what's completely unacceptable, is your teammates choosing not to try. And when you watch how this play unfolded, it becomes hard to shrug it off. This wasn't a misread or a blown coverage. This was visual proof that something inside the Browns' offense is broken. It's missing one of the most crucial traits of any successful football team: trust. The trust that your O-line has your back, that everyone is fighting for the same goal. That on 4th and 2, with the whole game on the line, everyone is giving everything they've got. But when your lineman gives nothing, what does that say? Not just about your team, but about the organization that put you there in the first place. And what happened on that one infamous play? It's not just one moment gone wrong. It's a spark that ignited weeks of hidden frustration, fueling rumors, creating doubt, and exposing something much darker hiding underneath Cleveland's offense. Because once you see that clip, you can't unsee it. But to really understand how we ended up here, we've got to wind the clock back. Because that 4th down play, that wasn't the beginning. That was just the first time the whole world saw what some fans had been quietly whispering since the preseason. It started in training camp. That's the period where systems are built. Chemistry is developed. And more than anything else, it's where trust gets established, between quarterbacks and receivers, between linemen and the guy they're assigned to protect, between new faces and old veterans. For rookie or young quarterbacks, those early reps are everything. It's where timing is formed, instincts sharpened, rhythm created. So what happened with Shedeur Sanders in those early weeks? He wasn't working with the first team. Hell, he wasn't even working with the second. According to multiple reports, he was stuck on a side field, throwing passes to equipment staff, practice squad fill-ins, and, in one of the wildest claims, even cafeteria workers helping fake receiver drills. Meanwhile, other QBs were out there learning the offense, running plays, grinding through mistakes, together as a team. But Shedeur? He was, by all accounts, isolated, kept out of sync from the very group he was expected to lead. Why? Nobody can give a straight answer. Not Stefanski, not the coaching staff, not the front office. And that silence has raised more than a few eyebrows among longtime Browns followers. Because in what world does a young quarterback, picked by many as the team's future, get pushed off to the sidelines when he should be building timing with his weapons? Think about what that means. While his competitors were running full-speed skeleton drills with WR1s and the starting offensive line, Shedeur was being asked to deliver throws to guys who wouldn't make it past final cuts. Some of them weren't even football players. You don't build cohesion that way. You don't build success that way. What you build is failure, and some believe this was by design. No, we're not talking about some grand tinfoil hat conspiracy hatched in a dark basement. But the deeper you look, the more unnatural this situation starts to feel. Because again, this isn't normal. Even third-string quarterbacks in this league get rotated in. They get time with their eventual targets, even if it's just to evaluate chemistry. But with Shedeur, the reports consistently say he wasn't being integrated. He wasn't being given that basic opportunity. The troubling part? This was all happening under head coach Kevin Stefanski's watch. Whether the call came directly from him or someone higher up, one thing seems clear. Shedeur was not being prepared to win. And yet, when the pressure of the regular season kicked in, when injuries hit, when the depth chart suddenly shifted, guess who got thrown into the fire? Suddenly, the same quarterback who was denied real reps, denied chemistry development, denied basic integration into the team was expected to lead it. Let that sink in for a second. Imagine telling someone to give a flawless performance with teammates they've never worked with, against defenses they've never prepared for, in one of the toughest leagues in professional sports. That's not just unreasonable. That's sabotage adjacent. And still, despite all of that, Shedeur didn't fold. That's what makes this story even more outrageous. He stepped onto the field, calmed the huddle, and started making plays. No excuses, no finger pointing, no hint of the dysfunction he'd been forced to wade through during camp. He battled, he adapted. He took hit after hit after hit, but he kept getting up and delivering strikes. He started earning respect the hard way by grinding through adversity while the system around him hesitated to support him. But now, after that now infamous non-block from Cam Robinson, all that hard work is under threat. Because it's hard to develop into a leader when the initial groundwork, trust, was never laid. It's hard to build momentum when your own line doesn't move to protect you. And it's nearly impossible to succeed long-term when the very foundation of your team seems to be resisting you at every step. And that's the question fans are now screaming into the void. Why hasn't Shedeur been given a real chance? Why did the franchise signal that he was their guy and then set him up like he was just a placeholder? In this league, moments matter. Snap decisions, split-second timing, emotional sync between quarterback and team, that's what makes drives work. And when those reps are stolen, when your QB is blocked out of early opportunities, what exactly do you expect in crunch time? Magic? No, what you get is what we're seeing now. Missed blocks, poor communication, receivers out of position, and a team that plays like strangers wearing the same uniform. That doesn't happen overnight. That doesn't happen by accident. It's planted in the shadows of the preseason. And whoever made the decision to sideline Shedeur during the most formative stretch of his young pro career, whether it was strategy, ego, or something worse, is just as responsible for what's happening now as the linemen standing still when it matters most. Because moments like training camp don't just affect September. They shape December. They define futures. You reap what you plant. And this team planted isolation, distrust, and locker room divide. So it's no wonder the only thing growing now is sabotage. Once the patterns start to appear, they're hard to ignore. First, it looks like a busted play, then a few suspect blocks, a strange rotation, off routes, canceled timing. Soon, those isolated moments start lining up, and when you lay them next to each other, week after week, the image becomes too clear to deny. What happened to Shedeur Sanders on that viral fourth down wasn't just a fluke. It was a symptom of something that's been happening all season long. And it's not just Cam Robinson. That would be almost too easy. Blame one guy, call it a bad effort, move on. But when the film keeps showing the same issue, when multiple linemen seem consistently laid off the snap, unaware of basic assignments, or letting defenders through untouched, you start questioning whether this is about talent or intent, because these guys aren't rookies learning on the job. Many of them are seasoned veterans, paid like professionals to do one thing, protect the quarterback. And game after game, they failed to do even that, repeatedly. Watch the second quarter against Baltimore. Shedeur sets up in shotgun, motion goes across the formation, the ball is snapped, and the left guard doesn't even engage. Two defenders streak through the center gap like it's a fast lane toll road. No hands, no resistance. Shedeur barely has time to take 2 steps before he's on the ground fighting to hold onto the ball. No blown assignment, just no reaction. Now go forward a week. Midway through the third, Cleveland needs a scoring drive to stay in it. Shedeur drops back after a bootleg to the right, except no one picked up the weak side rusher. Again, the tackle never looks, never slides, never reacts to audible pressure that should have been adjusted pre-snap. Another painful hit. Another drive killed before it begins. These aren't just mental mistakes. This is a breakdown in effort, awareness, and accountability, and when it keeps happening, it's fair to stop calling it coincidence. Because one missed block might be on the player. 2 might be bad coaching. But when it's this frequent, when it happens on crucial downs during key drives against beatable matchups, you have to ask whether this team even wants Sanders to succeed. And if you're thinking that's too far, think about this. Bad blocking usually comes with visible frustration. On the sidelines, linemen are furious after giving up a sack. They talk it out on the bench. They adjust. They care. But that's not what we're seeing in Cleveland. No arguments, no outbursts. No fire, no urgency. Just quiet jog backs to the huddle like nothing happened, like they expected it. That's what really sticks with people. Because even in losing efforts, NFL teams fight. They claw. They flinch when their quarterback takes a hit. But in Cleveland, too many players look disengaged, not overmatched, not out-schemed, just indifferent. And that indifference, when placed under a microscope, starts looking a lot like sabotage. especially when it comes from the one unit most responsible for keeping the quarterback alive. Let's be crystal clear, not every O-line struggle points to malice. But when misses happen this consistently, this obviously, on this many plays, at some point, you stop giving out excuses and you start demanding answers. How can this many protection breakdowns happen in a row, on every drive, without someone getting benched? How can Cam Robinson's now viral loaf happen without even a post-game explanation? The lack of in-house accountability is just as telling as the bad film. What's worse is that Shedeur Sanders isn't just getting hung out to dry physically, he's being set up to fail on tape. And that's a dangerous thing for a quarterback in the modern NFL. He's taking hits that lower his performance metrics. His stats suffer. His timing looks rushed. His mechanics break down under constant pressure. And to a casual viewer, it might look like Shedeur is struggling, when in reality, he's reacting exactly how a normal quarterback would when collapsing pockets become the norm. Every quarterback needs at least 2 seconds to read and throw. Shedeur's being given one, maybe even less. And every time his completion rate drops below 60%, or he short hops a pass under duress, or he throws off his back foot while getting drilled by a free rusher, it goes on his permanent record. That's what scouts look at. That's what management uses to plan trades, to draft replacements, to label a young QB a bust. But is it really fair to judge a quarterback who's been dodging his own teammates more than the actual defense? Because when you break down the protection on these plays, it's not just bad, it's suspicious. On blitz pickups, the assignments don't shift. On double teams, no one peels off to help. Basic blocking principles that have been beaten into these linemen for years are just gone, and every time it happens, Shedeur gets the worst of it. Not the coach, not the line, not the system, just Shedeur. And the thing that turns all of this from alarming to infuriating, he's still producing, despite the chaos, despite the pressure, despite an offensive line that falls apart before he even hits his third step. The numbers, when filtered for pressure rate, still prove he has what it takes to succeed at the NFL level. He's accurate, composed, competitive. The tools are there. The work ethic is there. The upside is clear. And that's exactly what makes this pattern so frustrating for fans who actually watch the tape. Because they know how many of these broken plays were fixable. They know how many drives died because a 300-pound lineman couldn't be bothered to lift a hand. And yet, week after week, it keeps happening. This is beyond poor execution. It's team infrastructure collapsing under its own dysfunction. Worse yet, it's a young quarterback absorbing all the blame, all the hits, and all the consequences for things he couldn't prevent because his support system wasn't designed to support him at all. And the more it happens, the more people are starting to say out loud what others only thought at first. This doesn't feel random anymore. When quarterbacks break down, the blame almost always starts with the offensive line. And in Shedeur Sanders' case, they've deserved every ounce of the criticism. But bad protection is only half the story. Because even on the rare snap when Sanders gets the time to throw, when he finally has a clean pocket and makes the right read, his receivers have a nasty habit of disappearing. And not just minor role players either. We're talking about Jerry Jeudy, supposed to be the Browns' #1 wideout. The guy brought in to be the go-to, the chain mover, the route technician who always finds a window. But when the Browns needed a playmaker against Buffalo, Jeudy was. What, a ghost? You had to squint just to find him on the stat sheet. Barely targeted. No explosive plays. No spark. Just running routes without separation and posting up in coverage like he was part of the defense. Now, everyone has an off day. Even elite receivers sometimes get neutralized. But what's happening with Jeudy isn't about one game, it's about a consistent lack of impact. This is a former high pick, a seasoned vet, someone who was supposed to lift a young QB by offering a security blanket on tough downs. And instead, he's become part of the problem. Go back and watch the All-22 cam. There are plays, particularly on third downs, where Judy's effort is questionable at best. Routes run half speed. No urgency out of breaks. Missed sight adjustments when the defense blitzes. And worse, the body language. You can see it after the play. The hands on hips, the slow jog back to the huddle, the refusal to fight through contact. It's like for whatever reason, this guy just isn't bought in. And when your top wide receiver checks out, what message does that send to the rest of the team? More importantly, what does that do to a quarterback who's already getting crushed behind a collapsing line? Because that's what makes all of this so painful to watch. Shedeur is fighting. You see it. You feel it. When the play breaks down, he doesn't fold, he evades, scans, resets. He's doing everything right in real time. And when he finally finds someone downfield, he should be able to count on his top weapon to deliver. But with Judy, there's no fire, no chemistry, no trust. Contrast that with Harold Fannin, and you'll see two completely different approaches to the game. Fannin isn't flashy. He wasn't hyped up as the future WR1. But he's out there every single week grinding like his career depends on it. Contested catches, he makes them. Tough yards after contact, he fights for them. And more than anything, he shows up in key moments, third and short, red zone fades, broken plays where improvisation is needed. Fannin is there. And yes, Fannin drops balls sometimes because everyone does, but he wants the ball. He demands it with his hustle, with his moves after the catch. He plays like he's part of the solution. Like he actually cares whether his quarterback succeeds. And every time he pulls in a 50-50 throw, you can almost see the relief on Shedeur's face. It's the look of a guy thinking, finally, someone who's here to win with me. But one man can't carry an offense. He can't attract every double team. He can't create mismatches on every snap. And he certainly can't fix the deep disconnect between Sanders and the guy who was supposed to be his primary target. That responsibility at this point should fall squarely on Judy's shoulders. And yet game after game, quarter after quarter, drive after drive, he's nowhere to be found. It's not just the lack of catches, it's the lack of commitment. There have been wide receivers in this league with far less talent, but way more heart, who changed the trajectory of their teams simply by refusing to fold under pressure. But when your top receiver is acting like a disinterested decoy, you've got an entirely new layer of dysfunction. And this isn't hypothetical. It's on tape. Against Buffalo, there are at least 3 instances where Shedeur looks to Judy first, following the called route progression, and Judy either rounds off the break, gives up on the route mid-stride, or stands flat-footed when a scramble drill starts. In each of those plays, Shedeur is forced to bail, look elsewhere, scramble, or take a hit. Not because the defense was perfect, but because his receiver never even gave him a shot. That's not just a missed opportunity. That's betrayal. And at some point, you have to ask, why is this effort being tolerated? Why hasn't the coaching staff called Judy out? Why hasn't he been benched for lethargic play the same way younger receivers would be? In most systems, standout laziness on tape means one thing: limited snaps. Yet Judy continues to start. To get drafted into every first offensive package, regardless of what he's actually bringing to the field. And every time he vanishes during a game, the pressure on Shedeur multiplies because he's left to force the ball somewhere it doesn't belong or make magic from absolutely nothing. That's not how NFL offenses are supposed to function. That's not how young quarterbacks are developed. And it sure as hell isn't how winning locker rooms operate. Real leaders don't tolerate passengers. Even stars are held accountable when they don't show up. But in Cleveland, no one seems willing to say what needs to be said. Jerry Jeudy has become a liability. Meanwhile, Shedeur's out here dodging sacks, slinging dimes under pressure, and getting dragged online for numbers that don't reflect his effort, but the glaring absence of effort around him. And it's no longer just the fans seeing it. Analysts are picking up on it. Former players are calling out the culture. Watch any post-game segment and you'll start hearing the same phrase again and again. He's got no help. That's not opinion. That's game film. And if Cleveland keeps ignoring it, they'll only have themselves to blame when they've run yet another young talent into the ground, not because he couldn't play, but because the people around him wouldn't. You'd think a young quarterback surrounded by this level of dysfunction would fold. Most would. In fact, most have. We've seen it across NFL history. Top college QBs thrown into broken systems, given zero support, and exiting the league before year 3. Talent alone doesn't secure success. It's who's around you, what's built for you, what type of ecosystem you land in. That's what turns potential into legacy. But here's where the story of Shedeur Sanders refuses to follow the script. Because somehow, against all odds, he's still standing, still throwing, still competing, still producing flashes of quarterback play that make you stop and say, wait a second, this kid might actually be special. And that's what makes this situation in Cleveland even more outrageous. Because if Shedeur Sanders was throwing ducks, panicking in the pocket, or misreading coverages, it would be easy to chalk his rookie year up as a learning curve. Growing pains, but he's not. He's handling pressure better than most second or even third-year guys would. He's reading defenses, processing quickly, making the right decisions. Even under impossible conditions, this kid is checking the right boxes. Take the game against Buffalo, the one that should have been a blowout. Instead, Shedeur came out on the opening drive and shredded the #2 pass defense in the league. Quick reads, accurate placement, calm feet. You could feel the confidence in every throw. He opened with a laser to the sideline, then hit Harold Fannin on a timing route like he'd been throwing it 100 times in practice, which, funny enough, he probably hadn't. And still, it looked smooth as ever. For anyone paying attention, that drive was a statement. I belong here. And then, of course, the sabotage began. But still, drive after drive, he found ways to adapt. He extended plays with his legs. He felt pressure and stepped up in the pocket rather than bailing too early. And when his receivers failed him, when they dropped passes, ran soft routes, or broke off patterns, he didn't lash out. He went right back to the huddle and kept doing his job. That composure, that poise under pressure, that's what separates the moment from the myth. You don't teach that. It's not something you scheme or program into a quarterback. It's instinct. It's leadership. And Shedeur's got it. Even his mistakes, when you break them down in context, tell a different story than the final box score might suggest. The interception to Junkins? The pass was slightly behind, sure, but it hit his receiver in both hands. Any coach will tell you if the ball hits you in the hands, you catch it. That pick was on the receiver, not Shedeur. Then there was the tipped interception at the line. Freak play. Defensive lineman times it perfectly, gets a hand up, ball pops into the air and into enemy hands. Happens to every quarterback in the league, from Mahomes to Allen. Not avoidable. Not an accuracy issue. Just one of those unfortunate moments that repeat themselves in football over and over again. But here's the part that separates Shedeur from so many others. He doesn't shrink after mistakes. He doesn't let one pick turn into 3. He doesn't spiral into hero ball mode and start forcing tight window throws out of frustration. Instead, he adjusts. If anything, he tightens up and gets more laser-focused. That kind of mental reset isn't normal for rookies. It's rare. It's Tom Brady rare. G. Bush said it himself during the post-game show, Shedeur Sanders is sneaky athletic. It's an offhand comment, but it says a lot. He's not known as a runner. He's known for vision, fundamentals, arm talent. But when the protection collapses, he doesn't panic. He moves, slides through pressure, creates something. That kind of presence in the pocket is what you build an offense around. Even under duress, he's still making the smart play. Not gambling, not crumbling. Even when bad protection and disengaged receivers make every snap feel like a coin toss, he's showing patience, timing, and field awareness beyond his years. That's why this whole mess in Cleveland feels like a giant missed opportunity. Because imagine, just imagine, what this kid could do with a functioning offensive line. With receivers who fought for every inch. With a coaching staff that didn't just throw him into live bullets without ever giving him live rounds in practice. This version of Shedeur, the one we're seeing behind a disaster of a front five, is already outperforming expectations. So what happens when you surround him with real protection? When timing routes actually connect because he's throwing to someone he's practiced with? When he has more than 2 seconds in the pocket, he could be dangerous. And that's the tragic irony right now. Browns fans have waited decades for a quarterback who has it. And now, one might finally be here, but instead of being supported, he's being sabotaged. But maybe the most impressive thing? Despite all of this, despite isolation in training camp, a team that won't block, and top receivers phoning in routes, Shedeur Sanders hasn't said a single word of complaint. He hasn't thrown anyone under the bus, hasn't blamed, hasn't deflected. He just goes out every week and continues to give everything he's got. That's leadership. That's franchise QB energy. That's something you can build around if the organization grows up and acts like they actually want to win. Because Shedeur has already shown what he is: calm under fire, fast learner, resilient, a fighter. He is clarity in chaos, the one stable force in a team full of cracks. He's done his part, over and over. The only question now is, will the Browns ever do theirs? It was only a matter of time before the analysts started saying it too. At first, it was whispers. Subtle comments buried in post-game segments, a raised eyebrow here, a knowing smirk there. But now, they're saying it plain, breaking from the script, going off the cuff and off-brand. Because at a certain point, even people paid to stay neutral can't ignore what's happening in Cleveland anymore. This isn't about one missed block. This isn't about a young quarterback making rookie mistakes. What's happening to Shedeur Sanders, week after week, looks deliberate, and the professionals are starting to agree. G. Bush didn't hold back. Sitting next to Earl the Pearl on the Instant Reaction show, he leaned forward with the kind of body language that says, "I've had enough." They weren't even breaking down the 4th down play yet. They were just talking about Shedeur's performance against Buffalo, and even then, G. Bush was already laying it out. This isn't football execution, this is sabotage. He called it nasty work. That's not a term analysts use lightly. That's what you say when someone's doing the kind of selfish, undermining stuff that doesn't belong in a professional locker room. That phrase has weight. And once it got said out loud, the floodgates opened. More tapes were reviewed. More eyes turned to Cleveland. And what they saw matched everything fans had been yelling about for weeks. Linemen pulling up mid-play, wide receivers coasting through routes, coaching decisions that make zero football sense. Earl the Pearl pointed out something even deeper, Shedeur's awareness in the pocket. Most young quarterbacks under pressure start bailing early. They get happy feet, start forcing passes, or pull the ball down too fast. But Shedeur stays in. Not because he's not feeling the heat, he is. But because he's trying to trust the line that clearly doesn't trust him back. He's executing the offense exactly how it's drawn up. And the people around him are flat out not holding up their end. Think about that. The coaching staff asks him to trust the system, trust his reads, trust that if he drops back, someone will pick up the blitz, that if he throws to the right spot, someone will be there. But what happens when everyone else is bluffing? What happens when the system itself is shaky and the trust goes one way? G. Bush practically slammed his desk when he said it. They're setting this boy up to fail. He's not ranting like a frustrated fan. He's not overhyping a viral clip. He's looking at the body of work, the full tape, and pointing to a pattern that doesn't happen by mistake. Because again, these aren't just missed assignments. These are effort violations. Wide receivers giving up on plays, linemen standing still when they should be fighting. Game plans designed to fail slowly, short throws, no rhythm paths, no balance, no real improvisation lanes. It's like they're coaching scared, or worse, coaching safe because they've already decided Shedeur isn't the guy. The analysts see it. Former players feel it. You don't even need to listen to what they're saying, just watch their faces. Watch how every breakdown of Shedeur's game starts with legitimate praise and then descends into confusion. Why doesn't this team scheme to his strengths? Why is there no urgency to fix the O-line issues? Why are the same players loafing week after week? It's not just media people either. Former pros who have been in locker rooms like this are starting to speak up. One even said off camera that Cleveland's culture right now reminded him of a team that decided who the starter should be and didn't care what film said after that. That's a dangerous place to be, because the moment coaching decisions stop being about performance and start being about ego. Teams collapse, and maybe you don't believe the media. Maybe you think they're just stirring up storylines, but fans have eyes too. They know football, and they're watching what's unfolding each week like it's a slow burn thriller. You couldn't write a more frustrating character arc than what Shedeur is being forced to live right now. He's doing everything right. He's learning, adapting, showing growth under pressure. And instead of lifting him up, the Browns are handing him cement shoes. If this were happening in a different city, with a different name on the jersey, this would be the top story on every podcast. Skip and Shannon would already be viral with hot takes. ESPN would be running cute-ups of the offensive line collapsing created by angry Reddit users turned film analysts. Because when a rookie QB shows this level of resilience and gets hit this often, with no accountability from the team, that's not just bad football. That's organizational failure. And the truth is, even coaches around the league are probably noticing now. Don't think for a second that front offices across the NFL aren't watching this tape. Eyeing Shedeur, whispering, if Cleveland doesn't want him, maybe we do. Because quarterbacks who can read, process, move, and perform under fire, that doesn't grow on trees. That's rare. And if the Browns blow this, if they ruin him completely, they won't just be costing themselves a season. They'll be throwing away the one chance they had to actually build something real with someone the city could rally behind. It doesn't take a conspiracy theorist anymore to say it. It doesn't take a fan with a YouTube channel and a flashy title. It just takes anyone with a pair of eyes and the ability to read a locker room. At this point, when you ask why Cleveland looks like a team trying to lose, you're finally hearing the answer out loud. They're not trying to lose. They're just not trying to let him win. At some point, the question isn't, is Shedeur Sanders being sabotaged? Anymore, it's, why would anyone want to do that in the first place? And that's the part of this story that gets uncomfortable. Because it's one thing for a team to be dysfunctional. That happens in the NFL all the time. Bad management, bad drafts, poor communication. But this feels different. This feels pointed, targeted. Like the moment Shedeur arrived in Cleveland, someone inside decided he was their guy. And ever since, the walls have been slowly closing in around him, piece by piece. So the obvious question becomes, who benefits from Shedeur Sanders failing? Some fans have pointed to ego. There's been quiet buzz for weeks that Kevin Stefanski never fully bought into Shedeur as his quarterback. He didn't pound the table for him. He didn't push ownership to build around him. In fact, it's been said that the decision to bring in Shedeur came more from upstairs, possibly from ownership or GM input, than from the coaching staff directly. And if that's true, well, that creates friction. NFL coaches are prideful. If a young QB is handed to them, rather than picked by them, it can trigger subtle pushback. Maybe not loud, not public. But internal decisions start to tell the story. Limited reps in camp, shorter leashes on bad plays, less patience with growth. And in Shedeur's case, the signs were there from the jump. Every possible chance to support him through the early process wasn't taken. And then there's the quarterback room itself. Some rumors have hinted at quiet tension, not the kind you see in press conferences, but the locker room vibe you can't fake. The kind where one side of the room thinks he's the future and the other doesn't. Some vet players may have quietly resented the attention Shedeur got coming in. The college hype, the YouTube spotlight, the viral swagger. Fans loved it. NFL veterans, maybe not so much. It's been said around the league for years, when a young quarterback becomes the brand before he becomes the guy, vets start taking it personally, especially if they had someone else in mind to lead the team. Someone they had chemistry with before, maybe a former starter. Maybe a long-time backup waiting for their shot, watching the media crown this new kid before he took a real snap. That's how jealousy brews. And jealousy in a locker room can be deadly. Even if no one says it out loud, it comes out in effort, in energy, in accidental breakdowns. When the guy throwing you the ball isn't someone you believe in or someone you flat out don't like, the little things go missing. The extra yard on the route, the slight adjustment to help him out, the block that lasts a heartbeat longer. Those aren't technical failures. Those are emotional choices driven by attitude. Some small leaks have suggested that Shedeur's presence has been dividing the Browns' offense from within. That some players see him as the savior, others as an outsider. And in the middle, a coaching staff trying to keep the peace without ever fully buying into the player they were given. Which brings us back to Kevin Stefanski. There's a growing belief that Stefanski is nearing the end of the leash in Cleveland. Multiple failed seasons, inconsistent quarterback development, odd game plans. It's not wild to say he's on the hot seat. So when a new quarterback arrives, one the coaches may not have handpicked, many believe the reaction behind the scenes was, let's build this kid up. It was not my guy, not my job to save him. That's dangerous, because the number one job of any coaching staff is to maximize the talent they have, not just the talent they wanted. But if Stefanski saw Shedeur as someone he didn't believe in, or worse, someone he didn't want to succeed because of internal politics, then every small decision starts becoming suspect. Training camp reps suddenly matter more. The decision to rotate receivers looks different. The lack of in-game adjustments becomes a conversation about priorities, not just X's and O's. And in that kind of environment, a quarterback doesn't just need to win games, he has to overcome internal resistance to do it, which is exactly what we've been watching Shedeur try to do all season long. He's fighting on the field, but he's also fighting in meeting rooms, in practice reps, in the court of public opinion. Everything that should be designed to support him might actually be built to break him. And it's not just the quarterback position either. Look at how players like Jerry Jeudy are performing under this leadership. Look at the lack of fire, the dead zone play calling, the robotic feel to the offense. Nothing says trust. Nothing says this is your team now. It's all safe, slow, fragmented football, and it looks like it's coming from a coaching staff trying to coast, not compete. So who benefits from all this? Maybe Stefanski, if it lets him shift blame. If he can say the kid didn't work out, then maybe he gets his choice at quarterback in the draft. Maybe there's a quiet favor being done to protect contracts, reputations, or long-standing loyalties inside the organization. Or maybe it's not about football at all. Maybe it's just about pride. Because when the control of a team's future is placed in the hands of someone you didn't choose, sometimes people want to see them fail just to prove their point, just to regain the power. And if that's what's happening in Cleveland right now, then this whole season isn't just a collapse. It's a setup. There's still time. That's the part people keep forgetting. As bad as it's been, as blatant as the dysfunction looks, this isn't a lost cause yet. but it's teetering closer to the edge with every drive, every game, every rep where someone decides not to give full effort. The Browns are staring at a crossroads right now. And if they don't choose wisely and urgently, then what gets lost isn't just a season. It's a quarterback, a culture, a future. Because here's what's real. Shedeur Sanders has shown enough. Enough to prove that he's not just some viral name, not just a product of media hype or college numbers. He's shown touch, poise, mobility, field IQ. He's battled against top defenses. He's produced under pressure. He's carried himself through this mess with maturity beyond his years. He can be a franchise quarterback, but the NFL does not wait forever. This league doesn't care if you were set up to fail. It just moves on. So if the Browns want to avoid making one of the most short-sighted mistakes in recent franchise history, the fix has to start right now. Not next year, not in a quiet off-season rebuild. Right now. It begins in the trenches. This offensive line isn't just underperforming, it's collapsing. They're not giving Shedeur time to develop, and worse, they're not protecting his health. Every hit he takes that he shouldn't be taking is another dent in his trajectory. And when those hits come not from defensive genius, but from teammates refusing to execute, that's the team's fault. The Browns have 2 first-round picks in the upcoming draft. Wasting even one of those on a shiny, skill position player would be a massive mistake. This team doesn't need more speed. It needs steel, backbone, protection for the only guy on this roster willing to stand tall while everything else is crumbling around him. Both of those picks should be used on offensive linemen. Period. No compromise, no clever trade downs, no distractions. You plant massive anchors in front of this quarterback and start building from the foundation because anything else is cosmetic. Some might argue you go 1 lineman, 1 wide receiver, maybe someone like Carnell Tate. But that argument only works if this team was close, if what we're seeing was a matter of fine-tuning. But it's not. The core of this offense is broken. Without a line that can hold up for more than 2 seconds, no receiver matters. Carnell Tate won't save a 3rd and 11 when the ball's never getting there in the first place. You win in this league up front. That's football 101. And ignoring that truth is how you waste quarterbacks. And what if there's an opportunity to move up and grab a 3rd pick? Do it. Use it on another offensive lineman. Fortify the wall. Until Shedeur feels protected, until there's time to breathe, no amount of weapons will matter. And then there's the matter of the staff. If Kevin Stefanski is still around by the time next season starts, you can't have status quo. You can't have another offseason where your potential franchise QB is running drills with parking lot attendants or 3rd-string camp bodies. That's not development, that's detachment. That's a coaching staff saying without saying, "We're not with you." That messaging has to go. If Stefanski stays, massive changes have to follow. A QB coach who works directly with Shedeur. Real reps with WR1s in camp. A playbook tailored to Shedeur's vision, not a Frankenstein's monster of failed pass systems. He doesn't need basic rollout packages, he needs rhythm-based progressions, timing routes, up-tempo systems built around his strengths. Things he showed last year that actually worked. And if Stefanski can't or won't make those adjustments, then the Browns need to make the tough call and bring in someone who will. Because at this rate, they're not just underutilizing a talented young quarterback, they're breaking him. And make no mistake, quarterbacks don't just bounce back from toxic starts. Even the ones with talent. We've watched promising QBs burn out because they were asked to shoulder too much too soon, with too little support. And once the media labels you a bust, it sticks. No one cares how it happened, just that it happened. That's the real danger here. If the Browns don't act now, if they don't change course immediately, they could ruin a player that another franchise would kill to have. And then what? They start over again? New QB, new rebuild, new marketing campaign? How many times are Browns fans supposed to reset their hope meter? How often is this franchise going to pretend that failed systems are just bad luck? Shedeur is not the problem. He's the evidence of the problem. He's the canary in the coal mine, and the more he gasps for air, the clearer it becomes who failed him. It's not defensive schemes. It's not arm strength. It's not reading coverages late. It's the environment. And environments can be changed if the team truly wants to. The footsteps of collapse are already echoing through this season. Fans are frustrated. Analysts are calling it out. Workers inside the building are probably saying it under their breath. The tape is damning. But here's the truth, it's still not too late. Shedeur Sanders needs help not in a year. Now, not after 9 losses. Not once the playoff picture is out of reach. Not once you've wasted another season. Now, If the Browns have the courage to face the mess head-on, own their mistakes, and make bold, aggressive fixes this offseason, there's still time. But if they do, then this doesn't end with a rebuild. It ends with a wasted quarterback, a fractured locker room. And the city of Cleveland walking away from yet another could have been story. You can watch the tape 100 times, slow it down frame by frame, argue over stats, or scream into the void of social media, but the truth won't change. What happened to Shedeur Sanders on that 4th down wasn't an accident. It wasn't a misread. It wasn't a glitch in the system. It was a mirror. A clear, brutal reflection of where this team is and where it's heading. When a 300-pound offensive lineman chooses to stand still while his quarterback walks into a wall, that's not football. That's betrayal. When receivers coast through their routes, drop perfectly thrown balls, or give up on scramble drills, that's not development. That's sabotage. When a coaching staff doesn't defend their guy, doesn't tailor the system around him, doesn't step in to demand better from the players around him, that's not leadership. That's negligence. And when all of that happens at once, don't be surprised when the only one who keeps standing tall is the one actually being set up to fall. Because here's the part most fans are waking up to now. Shedeur Sanders deserves better. Better effort. Better protection. Better teammates. Better coaching. And if the Browns refuse to provide it, if they keep pretending this is about rookie growing pains or building through adversity, then they're not just out of touch, they're complicit. Complicit in letting this level of failure happen on their watch over and over again. The saddest part? He's handled all of it with more maturity than some coaches do when they lose a coin toss. No panic, no finger pointing, no tweets, no sideline meltdowns, just grit, quiet leadership. Going out every week, absorbing punishment, and still trying to win games with pieces that refuse to fight back. There are rookies who melt under half this pressure. Shedeur. He's kept swinging in a cage match with one hand tied behind his back. And if that isn't the kind of guy you build around, what is? This isn't about hype. This isn't about draft status. This isn't about personalities or names or what team he played for in college. This is about what you do when someone shows you, week after week, that they're willing to stand in the fire and throw anyway. What do you do when a quarterback proves he's the real thing before your franchise even bothers to protect him? Isn't that what every team dreams of? A young player with composure, toughness, accuracy, and heart. Cleveland has that, and right now they're wasting it. Or worse, destroying it on purpose. Because legacy doesn't just come from what you build, it comes from what you break. And the Browns are on the edge of breaking something they won't find again for a long time. If this keeps going unchecked, if Cam Robinson doesn't get benched, if Jerry Jeudy keeps sleepwalking through routes, if coaching doesn't change or accountability never comes, then people won't remember this season as the one where Shedeur Sanders took his lumps while learning. They'll remember it as the moment the Browns threw away another quarterback. Another chance, another future. And they won't blame the system. They'll blame him. And that right there, that's the real cost of sabotage. It doesn't show up in the stat line. It doesn't trend on Twitter. It doesn't get covered in a post-game presser. It sits quietly behind busted plays, ignored missed blocks, and dropped passes no one talks about. And it plants itself in the headlines 2 years from now, when a headline reads, "Shedeur Sanders didn't pan out in Cleveland." Only those who were paying attention now will know the truth. He wasn't the one who failed. He was failed.